The man who became the world's most hunted dictator didn't seize power entirely on his own. He was manufactured, funded, and installed by the very same country that eventually put a noose around his neck. To understand the modern Middle East, the chronic instability, the rise of global terror networks, and the price at the pump, you must understand how one man became a geopolitical tool. The story starts in the wreckage of World War I. The Ottoman Empire shattered, leaving a massive power vacuum. Britain and France carved up the map, drawing new borders and creating a nation called Iraq. Britain granted Iraq independence in 1932, but for decades the country saw zero stability. A fragile monarchy was violently overthrown in 1958, leading to a decade of brutal military dictatorship. The Iraqi people were desperate for order, leaving the door wide open for an authoritarian ruler. Enter the CIA. During the Cold War, America worried Iraq's leadership was leaning too close to the Soviet Union, so they backed the rising Ba'ath Party. Specifically, they elevated a young, ruthless intelligence chief named Saddam Hussein, a man known for systematically eliminating his political rivals. Intelligence agencies groomed Saddam to serve as a firewall against Soviet influence, positioning him to secure Western interests in the Middle East for decades to come. By 1979, Saddam had forced his way to the presidency. That same year, a revolution swept through neighboring Iran, bringing Ayatollah Khomeini to power and establishing a fiercely anti-American regime right next door to Iraq. Saddam saw an opportunity. Driven by massive ego, he obsessed over becoming the supreme leader of the Islamic world. He looked at a chaotic post-revolution Iran and decided to attack. Washington saw an attack dog they could use. With American diplomats held hostage in Iran, the U.S. heavily funded and armed Saddam's military. They supplied intelligence and weapons to neutralize the Iranian threat, using Iraqi soldiers so Americans wouldn't have to die. The reality of the war was horrific. It dragged on for 8 agonizing years. Iraqi forces bogged down in Iran's mountainous terrain. The conflict claimed an estimated 2 million casualties between the two nations and yielded absolutely zero territorial gains. This first war successfully halted Iran's regional expansion, exactly as the West wanted. But it left Iraq financially bankrupt and desperate, perfectly positioning Saddam to fall into a devastating geopolitical trap. To fight Iran, Iraq had borrowed heavily from its neighbors, including $80 billion from Kuwait. When the war ended, Kuwait flatly refused to forgive the debt. Kuwait actively provoked Iraq by using slant drilling technology, driving pipes across the border to siphon oil directly out of Iraqi reservoirs. Then, Kuwait intentionally overproduced, flooding the market, crashing the global price, and economically suffocating a desperate Iraq. Saddam threatened war. In response, the U.S. secretly signaled to him that America had no opinion on Arab disputes. Believing he had a green light, a hyper-confident Saddam invaded Kuwait in August 1990. The U.S. instantly reversed its stance, using the invasion to justify rallying a 30-nation coalition. They launched Operation Desert Storm and completely crushed the Iraqi military in a matter of weeks. Despite the victory, the U.S. chose not to remove Saddam from power. By leaving him in charge of a weakened, sanctioned Iraq, they ensured a permanent military presence in the region was necessary to maintain the balance of power against Iran. Following the 9/11 attacks, the U.S. economy faced a severe slowdown. Seeking a way to stabilize the dollar and secure vast energy reserves, the administration targeted a weakened Iraq, eyeing its massive stockpiles of oil and gold. To legally and publicly justify a full-scale invasion, the U.S. administration manufactured a narrative. They claimed, loudly and repeatedly, that Iraq possessed weapons of mass destruction. In 2003, America launched Operation Iraqi Freedom. It was swift and brutal. American forces completely toppled the regime, and within 8 months dragged a defeated Saddam Hussein out of a hole in the ground. The entire world watched the search, but absolutely zero weapons of mass destruction were ever found. The invasion was a pretext for a total corporate and military takeover of Iraqi resources. To dispose of their former asset, the U.S. installed a new government to try Saddam for a 1982 massacre. It was a courtroom theater featuring hand-picked judges, heavily biased to ensure a predetermined death sentence. They hanged him on December 30th, 2006. Executing a prominent Sunni leader on the major Islamic holiday of Eid was a calculated choice. It intentionally sparked regional outrage, deep insurgency, and violent sectarian fractures. This manufactured instability turned Iraq into a breeding ground for groups like ISIS. The resulting global terror threat requires a permanent cycle of military intervention, which in turn fuels multi-billion-dollar weapon contracts for years to come. While the bombs fell, foreign corporations swooped in to take total control of the region's oil extraction. They siphoned off the vast majority of the profits, leaving a once wealthy Iraq entirely impoverished. Saddam Hussein's own ego made him the perfect instrument for this strategy. His ambition provided the spark, but it was the Western interests behind him that orchestrated this highly profitable, endless cycle of war.